Thankfully, I mean, as we've been told, every single case we've had, has been traced to one source, which is, Mr. Patrick Sawyer, who came into the country. Well, a lot of people I was asking questions in terms of what we've been asked to eat and not to eat, public, beg your pardon, bush meat, suya. Is it
My
okay
daughter asked
to?
about suya yesterday.
Yes.
So I want to eat suya. So.
These are questions that people are asking. Is it something you would advise? Besides, what was the problem with soya anyway?
Fair.
Fear. No, because
not
a lot of
suya.
some promos actually had do not eat suya. And people were wondering, but if we heat them up enough, it should be safe for consumption.
Yes, they would be safe for consumption. You're absolutely right. The virus can't survive the heat, and like you rightly pointed out, in Nigeria the problem hasn't been the animals, as it were. And if at all they were, our real concern should be the people who prepare the animals, at this point. So the man who kills it, because the virus will be in the blood, isn't it? So it's the man who kills it, the man who carries it to town, the man who is cutting it up. Those are the people we should be most concerned about. For most of us, we don't eat this, how do you call it now? Rarely done steak, that they will eat in the West, where you cut and blood is flowing out of your meat. So for us, our suya is well done. So it's rather safe, that's the truth. So our bigger concern should be from the preparation stage, the killing stage, the preparation, if at all.
I'm still thinking about how people get to contract this. Has there been any case of someone who is immune to the virus, even when you get in contact with such?
Well, nothing documented.
Because for some of those that have been tested, even those some who were in contact with some of these people have tested negative.
Right. What happens is there are two sets of tests that have been done. One is actually to kind of detect the virus itself. Okay. The other test is to detect the immunity against the virus, which is and slightly more complex. We couldn't do the second one before it's been done now. However, the challenge we have with that is that people are only tested when they are sick. In which case it's difficult for you to then know the man who was exposed, who actually just, his body completely resisted this, because he would never be tested, as it were. The closest perhaps is the diplomat who's tested, and they tested and they found the antibodies, which is how you were pretty sure that this man did have that disease, has recovered from it. And, when all of this blew out, that's what I mean. When this blew open, about the doctor in Port Harcourt, then they had to test the man, and they saw that he did have immunity against the virus, which means he had the virus, and that's how come a doctor got it from him.
In other words, he can't contract it again.
Not for the moment, not for the next few weeks, months, perhaps up to a year.
I'm still really, really not comfortable with this talk about how you contract it. When you say you have to be really, really sick before you can pass on the virus. Tell us more on that, because for some it would seem as if, that means some people wouldn't have actually gotten it, because by that time you would have known that this person is really sick. How come people still pass it on to the next man who is well before then?
They again, if you look at those stories, they pass it on when they are sick, actually. My best way of breaking that down is to point out to people that when you get bitten by a mosquito, for instance, and it passes on the malaria parasite in your blood, you don't become sick. You're fine, and that parasite hides somewhere in your body. It begins to produce children. It multiplies. And it's when they are many enough, they jump out of hiding and begin to run crazy all over your body, in your blood. And that's when you develop the symptoms, the shivering, the fever. It's the same process. The virus gets in, it hides out. It multiplies. When it's many enough, and they feel now we can win this war, they run wild in the blood, and the person begins to have symptoms. And that's also why you can't actually detect it. If I got injected with the virus now, and you actually took my blood sample, you went to test, you won't find it. Because they're not many enough, they're not running around, they're also hiding out, getting ready for the real battle. And when they are ready, they jump out and start running wild. And that's when I have the symptoms, and that's when they also test me, because that's when they can actually find the virus. And therefore, that's when you can also transmit the virus, because the virus otherwise is not running around freely, enjoying himself, jumping in all the body fluids, taking over all the territories. So that's why we say it's until the person is sick. However, I like your question, because when you talk about really, really sick, the question is, what is really, really sick?
Yeah, because the man I saw in that video,
right,
he was actually in a struggle with the people who were trying to take him back to the
that's
facility.
exactly my point. That the fact that really, really sick is a very subjective term or description. So let's just call it until you are sick, which basically means until you are symptomatic. Okay, so once you have symptoms, then we can actually, should I say, prove that the virus is running around in your body, and therefore you can transmit the virus.
Could he transmit at that stage?
I don't know what stage he was at.
I mean, if he's able to move,
it could actually even be on the recovery
people?
curve. I don't know what stage he's at. Yeah, it could actually be recovering. But however, he's still in the isolation ward. He's not been discharged because they are not convinced he's well enough yet. So I don't know what stage he's at.
And it's also possible that he's in the the first 10 early days.
It's also possible he's in the early days.
Because if you're really sick, that's when you can transmit, we understand.
Right. You'll eventually get to where you are really sick.
No, when you're down.
Okay. Yeah, we can really, eventually somewhere along the line, this person will become really sick. He becomes sick, symptomatic. At that point, he can transmit the virus, but he becomes really sick at some point again, where he becomes really incapacitated, bedridden.
At this stage, one wonders, is either, as you said, maybe he's on the recovery curve, or he's at that early stage where he's been known to have gotten that symptom. But this is not the kind of, thankfully, this didn't happen in the country here. But just as you also have highlighted here, we have to also keep tabs on what's going on across the West African coast, our neighbors here, so that because we share borders with some of these countries, and we also have to watch our borders so that they don't slip in.
Absolutely.
Because someone could see this chap and think, okay, well, looking at him, you may not know.
Fine. Yeah. And like I pointed out, the 2 American missionaries, they woke up, they had a fever, they isolated themselves. They were still strong enough, they could move around and all of that, but they knew, I'm now sick, I have symptoms. So they knew, let me keep away from people now.
But the other thing about their own cases, they they came out, people see them, people know them.
Right.
But here, it's not like that. What do you think? Should we change some of those things and actually name some persons? That has to do with stigmatization, will it?
I wish we could. But that would depend on the people themselves.
Not us, the authorities handling it.
No.
Have you had any case of someone being stigmatized?
Oh yeah, there have been many cases of stigma, which is entirely unfortunate, really, because you stigmatize people. Why? Because you feel this man is a danger to me, is carrying something dangerous to me. Now, if somebody,
after he's been discharged and certified.
Exactly. So now that this person has gone to treatment, is out, he can't pass on anything to you. That's why he was let out of the place. They will have to test him to discover does he carry the virus, or he can't transmit the virus anymore before they let him out. So really, then the man is like somebody who had malaria and recovered. So there's nothing anymore to him. He's back. I should only be grateful that he survived it. That's all. If people have asked me, would you shake them? Would you? I said gladly. Because this is science. So it's either you've proven it or not.
But some people have said that it looks like a two-edged sword, because when you don't name those names, that's why they can move around and then get to other places and don't even tell people what their situation is.
But some have also said, well, if it was you, should we name you? Should we tell people it was you?
What if after they've been healed?
Yes, even
the
then,
same thing applies.
Even then, there's patient confidentiality, for instance, whereby I have to protect you. I have to protect your privacy as much as possible. I can't do certain things, especially in a situation like this where I know there's a risk of stigma. I really need your own, consent to do those things. We would love to do them.
That's for the health practitioner?
Yes, for everybody. We would love to do them, even for the reporters. And I'm hoping we'll have a session, with the media to talk about even the ethics of reporting Ebola and all of that. And that's one of the things we need to talk about. I have many friends in the media, You know, I have people who've called me and said, oh, we just heard this, you know, and I heard it's this person, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I don't know. I can't confirm that. I really don't know at this point. I said, however, if you must write that, please don't mention any names.
Just quickly, though, I mean, as a public health official, it would seem that we're seeing some advantages, or I don't want to say advantage, but opportunities that this is presenting us with. One of the papers had on the front page, Lagos to provide 600 schools with pipe-borne water. And we have to ask, did you have to get to this before we, you know, begin to look at certain other things? What would you be advising that we take home from the Ebola outbreak?
So many lessons, like pipe-borne water. You know, when you read that, you say, it's about time, isn't it? But there's a Yoruba adage, you know, that says if you don't eat the yam, or how do you put it, if you don't eat the yam because of the palm oil, you eat the palm oil because of the yam. You know, something has to make you do what you have to do. You know, so I think Ebola brings us some lessons, good lessons. Hand washing, shouldn't that be normal? You know, so Ebola is reminding us what our mothers taught us. Wash your hands regularly. So we need to pipe-borne water, with Ebola soap. Is telling us, with soap. I mean, just basic things. Which means if we did all of these things initially, if they now start telling you that, you say, oh yeah, I'll be fine. You know, but now it's sounding like a big deal to people. Oh, wash your hand, wash your hand. Yeah, wash your hand. So, and after Ebola goes, please wash your hands still. You know.
Baba wants to know. He says, "Morning, guys. How do we protect ourselves when dealing with those who use gloves in public office throughout the day?"
Whew, that's a tough one, because I'm wondering about you protecting yourself. I think you need to point it out to them. We've had to do that. I had a colleague who was somewhere the other day and called me because she had to confront the official and said, look, you're wearing this pair of gloves on everybody. And she said, you need to stop that. You need to change that glove after each one, or you don't wear any gloves. It's one of the two. If you can afford to remove the gloves and wear a new pair after you've dealt with one person, whether you have free skin or whatever, then do so. But otherwise, if you think that's too expensive or cumbersome, then don't use the gloves. You can wash your hands after each person. You know, so it's tough, but I think we need to point out to people. I think a lot of things have been done out of ignorance. You know,
because even in the pharmacies, when you get there, you see them wearing gloves, and then they're touching everyone who comes in with that same glove, and you think,
absolutely.
Come on, you guys should know better.
Absolutely. It's the same reason why a doctor is on a ward round in a hospital. He doesn't wear one pair of gloves, attend to this patient, check him up, and move to the next bed with the same pair of gloves. He has to remove those gloves, throw them away, go wash his hands, then move to the next patient.
That's quite expensive.
Quite expensive, so don't wear any, which is cheaper, and just wash your hands, or if you can't readily access running water at that point, use your sanitizer.
All right, and that's a very enlightening perspective today. Dr. Doyin Odubanjo is the first Vice Chairman, Association of Public Health Physicians of Nigeria, the Lagos chapter. He's also the Executive Secretary, Nigerian Academy of Science, shedding some light on the EVD threat. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.